The year is 2022. Do our prisons look like this? Do we control the weather with a bunch of laser satellites like this? Do doctors heal bullet wounds like this? Are we surviving a global food shortage by crushing up old people in little tiny green crackers and eating them like this? Does the government give us 12 hours a year where we're allowed to commit any violent crime we can think of, like this?
System announcing the commencement of the annual Purge.
My name is Alex, and I live in the future. This is my series where I watch films set in the present year and grade them on how well they did on predicting what 2022 would look like. This week I'm watching the 1993 film Alien Intruder starring Billy D. Williams, who you may recognize from such incredible films as Lego Star Wars Holiday Special, Robot Chicken, Star Wars Episode 2, and of course Snoop Dogg's Hood of Horror. An American spaceship has gone missing somewhere in space in the mysterious G sector. And if you're trying to figure out how to find the G sector, what you do is you just put your finger into space and then give it a come hither motion. Because it's so dangerous up there, they staff the entire mission with guys they got out of horny space prison. They not only recruit men who have done horrible crimes, they're also extremely horny.
Blue and armored car took out a pizza joint along with it. 5 dead.
You like to blow things, huh?
Not as much as I like them.
At first, the guys are like, no thanks, prison's good enough for me. Then they find out that they'll get to spend their weekends in the Aphrodite program, a virtual reality sex pod where they get to live out their most complicated and historically inaccurate fantasies. And to be clear, when I say spend the weekend, I mean the entire weekend. Like, they clock out at 5 o'clock on Friday and immediately dive headfirst into these pods. And then they wake up Monday morning at 9, sore and sticky, I assume, and then go straight back to work. Is it restful? No. But is it fun? Also, seemingly no. I mean, they spend 100% of their free time in these complicated stories. Like, this guy spent a month getting in fights in front of this gas station, and this guy is working out in his own fantasy? As soon as the rescue mission gets to the G sector, these F-boys get a virus, as F-boys are wont to do. But in this case, it's a very specific AI alien virus that comes in the form of a femme fatale who still uses a cigarette holder for some reason. And she is also a witch? I don't know. She bewitches everybody. She hypnotizes them, I guess, into just wanting to kill each other for no reason. And for Commander Billy D. Williams, he's like, man, this deal keeps getting worse all the time. I'm not really sure I understand the alien strategy here. The only thing they're able to defend against is barges full of horny prison men. Like, if NASA sent a single straight lady or gay man, it would be over for the aliens. Like, that's all it would take. Now, admittedly, NASA's hiring practices don't seem to have diversity in mind, given that their payment program is just time that you get to spend in the heterosex pod. First of all, they love lasers in this movie. That the guns are lasers, the prison bars are lasers, which, can you imagine the power consumption of having your prison bars be 24/7 giant laser beams when you could just have a door for free? It doesn't make a ton of sense. I mean, that's why for us, lasers are mostly just to entertain cats and annoy pilots. So negative 50 points, we are nowhere close to this amount of lasers. There's this android on the ship and everybody's mean to him for absolutely no reason.
Morning, Mile.
And it kind of reminds me of how I talk to my Google Home, so plausible, plus 4 points. This is what their board games look like, and I don't see enough expensive expansion pack potential on this game, minus 7 points. I'm supposed to believe this is what the inside of a spaceship looks like? This is the cheapest set I've ever seen for a spaceship. Could you only afford to film in a closed Home Depot? Negative 30 points. Probably the funniest thing about this future is 2 very small but very specific misses, which they predict that music in the future will be done on very small CDs and that everyone will work out on a Bowflex machine. And that is just so beautifully specific for the early 90s. So negative 93 points for that. Overall, not good. There's very little to recommend this futurism. I'm gonna give them 1.5 stars out of 7. But should you watch this movie? No, of course not. What? No, definitely no. I mean, the only reason I could recommend Alien Intruder to somebody is if they really love nudity, but cannot figure out a place to see it. Like, if there's just no options to you at all. You've never heard of the internet, you don't have any other movies, and it would take too long to draw it. But it's not even great nudity. Like, you could watch this movie for 90 minutes and still have no idea how to find the G sector. And this week, because it's spooky month, I watched The Purge, the 2013 film starring Ethan Hawke, who you may know from White Fang 2, The Myth of the White Wolf. The year is 2022, and for reasons that I do not know, because this movie did not bother to explain, and there is no way I'm ever going to watch this prequel where they finally got around to explaining why, the United States has implemented a purge, which is for 12 hours, once a year, everyone can commit every crime that they want. Just all crime is fine, it's cool, especially the violent ones. In fact, only exclusively the violent ones. The movie posits this would help everybody release their tension and anger, and what it would actually do is just give everybody PTSD and permanent sadness. Our main guy is Ethan Hawke, who sells Purge security systems, but then he himself becomes the target of some big Purge energy from a guy who looks the exact same amount of creepiness with and without a mask. So Ethan and his family try to avoid getting purged, and these people are like, no, please let us purge you. And then they're like, no, don't purge us. We don't like to be purged. And then the neighbors come over and they're like, you can't purge our friends. Only we can purge our friends. So then the family parks the bus, they run out the clock, not as many people get purged as some of the other people would have liked, and then just everything is awkward at barbecues for the rest of the year, I guess? Anyway, the entire thing takes place in one house that is being purged because it was a low-budget movie, and all they wanted to spend money on was the cost of getting fake blood out of an Airbnb couch. There's almost no technology in this movie, so the main thing to look at is whether or not there is a purge in 2022. There is not. Game over, minus a million points. The movie is not good at predicting the future. But this movie is also incredibly bad at showing how humans behave ever in any situation. These are some of the most bizarre, unrealistic characters I could ever imagine. Like this.
Look what time it is.
Oh, well, it's later than I thought. All right, it's time for lockdown. Let's go.
People start brining turkeys a week in advance for Thanksgiving. I don't know, maybe let's batten down the hatches an hour early. We don't have to wait till it's exactly purge o'clock before we lock the doors. And these are rich people, right? Like, I get if you work at Starbucks and your boss is like, yeah, I'm not letting you out early just because it's purge day. You know, maybe you get time and a half if you have to work through the night at purge. And we know there are bosses who would be like, look, I don't care that it's purge, you're on the schedule, either use PTO or this is an unexcused absence. But these are people who could take the day off and just like get ready. Also, they would leave. All the rich people would just leave. No one would hang around and just lock the doors during Ted Cruz left the country when it got a little chilly in Texas. You don't think he would be in Cancun the entire purge month? But the most insane character thing about this whole movie is that everyone acts like if you purge someone on purge, not only is it legal, but also no one can be mad at you, which just isn't true. There are plenty of things you can do that are technically legal that people will still be mad at you for. Like, lick a dollar bill before you give it to a cashier. Legal in every state, right? But no one likes you. Or like this idiot. He decides to purge his girlfriend's dad because she doesn't want them dating. And you know what that would be if you purged your girlfriend's dad? That would be a fight. She's not going to be like, well, it is technically legal. I can't stay mad at you. That's the rules of purge. No, you were absolutely in the doghouse if you purge her father. But the thing that really irritates me about this movie is that all crimes are legal for 12 hours, and the only crimes that anybody in the movie does are the violent ones. Like, if you just made all crimes legal, I don't think violence would be on my top 100 crimes I'd like to do today. There's so many things I'd rather do. I'm gonna fire up BitTorrent, I'm gonna download every movie and TV show from the last year, and then just watch them all this year and not get any nasty letters from Comcast. I'm gonna park really close to a stop sign. I'm gonna get so many Kinder Eggs. Oh, it's gonna be Kinder Egg City that night. And then when I pay for those Kinder Eggs at the gas station, I'm gonna lick all my dollar bills before I give them to the clerk, and I'm like, you can't stay mad at me. It's purge. The final score for futurism in this movie is a 9 on the pain scale. No, you shouldn't watch it. The premise is interesting. It's fun to like think about the purge and talk about the purge maybe, but somehow the movie is much worse than just having the premise exist. So I'm glad they made the movie so we can talk about the purge, but you should not watch the movie. This is a better time you're having right now. Go talk to your friends about all the laws you'd break on purge night that aren't violent. That'd be fun, way more fun than watching the movie. But if I haven't convinced you yet, let me add a couple more details about how just bonkers these characters are. So this is a conversation hours before the purge.
What's bothering you? It's tonight, isn't it? Just remember all the good.
Me, an empath. Are you feeling upset because everyone in the country might die tonight, including yourself? There's a couple of design elements in this house that you need to see. Number one, these are 2 ketchups from the same brand in different size jars. There are 2 mustards of the same brand, different size jars, 2 pasta sauces, Same brand, different size jars. That's weird. I don't like you. Too much ketchup. Number 2, they have a jar of golf balls. Unlikable. I don't care if you get purged. I don't like you in your golf ball jar. But then this is the weirdest one, which is a fishbowl full of Dominoes. Who would do this? What family member went to the store and bought 12 sets of Dominoes, decanted them into a fishbowl, and then put them on the side table as if they wanted everyone who passed by to be like, wow, this family knows how to have fun. These are not interesting or real people. I don't like them. I don't care what happens to them. I hope they all get purged. Anyway, I'm sorry. I've gone on too long. I need to get going. My car is parked right in front of a stop sign. So thanks for watching. And this week I want to talk about the movie from 1994, No Escape. The year is 2022, and a man with no personality is going to desert prison. Then he does some additional crimes, so they send him to double secret prison, an entire island where they let prisoners play Lord of the Flies for reasons. He flees the violent people there and settles with the other group on the island, a peaceful Swiss prisoner Robinson situation. But he isn't satisfied with wearing earth tones and riding bamboo elevators. He wants to escape, even though the title of the movie suggests that's unlikely. After a lot of bloodshed and fighting, he does. So really it should have been called Yes, Escape, but at what cost? But how did the filmmakers from 1994 do at guessing what 2022 would be like? For starters, the movie opens with this text about private prisons being big business that exploit criminals, which is so right on that it overshadows the rest of the movie and how silly it is. And it's plenty silly.
Come and get it!
One of my favorite things about the future is that apparently prisons are located in the desert and are accessible only by armored monorail. And I feel like by 1994, we knew better than to think monorails were the future. I love a giant floating hologram head, and I am not sure why we haven't done it yet because we have the technology. But what I love about it in this movie is that you can see the cable isn't plugged all the way in, and that is extremely plausible. You gotta get prison IT down here to take a look at that. I have no idea why they thought in 2022 prison guards were gonna need helmets with very large ear holes. -2 points for that one. This is the only rich guy we see in this movie, and he is wearing khaki pants, a khaki jacket, khaki vest, khaki shirt, and khaki tie, and that is ugly, so it's very believable for a rich person. Some of the best futurism always comes from graphic interface design, and this is where they're showing that he has violent aggression in his DNA, but to prove it, they had to have 2 different 3D models of what his DNA looks like, and then on the left side, it tells you some things that they found in his DNA, including H109, another DNA scan, a heart, and a double helix. And the thing they missed the hardest is that this lush forest could be used as a private prison, when in actuality, by 2022, this entire island has been burned to grow more palm oil. Overall, I'm going to give it an 8, I think. There's so much that is not close to what's actually happening, but they were so right about private prisons that they deserve at least a B-. A weird side note here is that there was some cannibalism in this movie, and another movie set in 2022 is Soylent Green, so there's something about this year that for a long time people have thought, that's when the cannibalism is really going to take off. There's a few more months, so maybe, but I just don't see it happening. Let me know your thoughts, like, subscribe, do all the stupid YouTube things, and I appreciate you watching. And today I'm watching 1993's Time Runner, starring Mark Hamill. Yeah, him, the guy from What We Do in the Shadows.
How did you know my name?
This one cheats a little bit because even though it is set in 2022, about 6 minutes into the movie, Mark goes back in time to 1993 to prevent an alien attack, and so then most of the movie takes place in the day that it was that they were filming, which is much more affordable. And affordable is the name of the game for this movie. I feel like Mark took up 99% of the budget and everything else was like $100 max. The whole movie looks like it was purposefully the first draft of a Mystery Science Theater 3000 episode. Even when they tried to draw the future, this is Washington, D.C. in 2022, they were like, but just draw it at night so you don't have to do much of the detail. It's also not a movie that wasted a lot of money on subtlety. Like, the big twist is that the world president is secretly an alien, although the whole time his name was just alien spelled backwards. You got me, guys. How did they do at predicting what 2022 would look like? I mean, honestly, they didn't seem like they cared much at replicating what 1993 looked like, so obviously it was not going to be good. We'll start with screens, because they are always one of the funniest things to look at in futurism, because they're using actual screens. This is their high-tech missile silo equipment. Can you imagine if your work computer still had to type out every single letter like there was a digital typewriter? Also, this is a ship that is capable of interstellar and intertime travel, and this is what this interface looks like. But at least they turned the tones off, because that would have been really irritating. Minus 10 points across the board for the screens. I am a sucker for futuristic tech jargon, and this scene nailed it.
Optics, very advanced.
Let me see.
On Diamond. I've never seen anything close to this. Chips are out of my area of expertise.
What is a superconductor on a diamond? I don't know. I don't care. You said cool words. I believe it's the future. Plus 2 points. Lots of futuristic movies want us to believe that at some point humanity just gives up on two-piece clothing and we all wear jumpsuits everywhere we go. And I am here for it. Lots of people are trying on jumpsuits right now, and every one of you, if you've worn a jumpsuit, you looked cool doing it. They're great. This outfit that Mark is rocking with the thick belt, I could 100% picture seeing somebody wearing this in modern day Los Angeles. 10 points. But the biggest piece of tech in this whole movie is the space station, which apparently we had time to build one this big, but we also had time to let the interior, which has artificial gravity, completely go to shit. This is what it looks like. Like, apparently we invented this much space station, but they did not think we would have a Roomba. Also, the backdrop for this politically is that at some point the entire world unified under one government focused on peace, and that is not plausible in 2022, and it also wasn't plausible in 1993, so I have no idea how they came up with that. Overall, I gotta give them 2 out of 10 on futurism, but 2 things about that. 1, that means they only spent about $50 per point they got from me, which is a pretty good deal. And 2, this is all based on me living in 2022 in the timeline where Mark Hamill already went back and stopped the alien invasion. This all might be very different if that hadn't happened. If you want to know if you should actually watch Time Runner, the answer is 100% definitively no. But the one thing in this movie that is objectively awesome is a character named Arnie. We meet him when he wakes up hungover in his crop duster plane, and he overhears an alien and a person from the future discussing plans to fight the government, and he is just immediately game to help.
Get your truck, maybe take the back roads.
And you'll take us there?
Why not? I'm what you might call adventurous. By the way, you're almost out of...
That's it. He's adventurous. The next day, he's carrying an automatic weapon into an army base. Like, this dude is just so completely down, it's incredible. So I wouldn't recommend watching Time Runner, but I would recommend, if they ever have a sequel, you should definitely watch Time Runner 2, Arnie is Down to Clown. And it's 2022, which means we can watch Soylent Green from 1973. You know the ending, I knew the ending. It's the most spoiled ending in all of movies.
It's people.
But I did not know how they got there or why, so I watched it for the first time this week. And it is a journey. The year is 2022, and everything is much worse because of all of it. It's just bad. A cop in a jaunty neckerchief is really set on solving the murder of one of the richest people in town, even though it's going to cause him to learn a lot of stuff he did not want to know. Like the thing that we all know that he figured out.
It's people.
But it's really more about the journey than the destination. It turns out the real Soylent Green is the people you eat along the way. How did Soylent Green do at predicting the future? I mean, it does kind of suck right now, right? I mean, climate change? Yeah, you nailed that. 100 points. It's really warm right now. But not everything is right. Like, for example, in this movie, there are 40 million people living in New York, and that is off by, like, 30 million. It's not a great number. There's a clever metaphor here about how in order to get anywhere in the world, you literally need to step on somebody, but these are supposed to be New Yorkers. They're just quiet. There's no way. If you step on somebody in New York, they're gonna be like, hey, I'm sitting here. In order to keep the power on in their apartments, they have to ride stationary bicycles, and that's not true currently, but sometimes you do have to pedal a bike in order to get a beer, so this one's a wash. The rich guy decides to buy a video game for his live-in prostitute, and the video game looks like this. That's kind of a hilarious miss. And in fact, this whole apartment is pretty funny because basically they're predicting that in the future, apartments from rich people will look exactly like they did in the 70s. Screens will never get bigger or smaller. The taste in couches will remain the same. The only thing they thought would change is that prostitutes would stay the night every night, I guess. It's really weird. Minus 5 points for this one. At one point, he pays $270 for groceries, and this is what he gets. And that seems pretty believable. Groceries are extremely expensive. But then he refers to those dollars as D's? Like,
That makes it 279 Ds and 15 cents.
which is disgusting, and nobody says that, and that one, minus 1,000 points for having to hear you say that. This NYPD officer is very dedicated to solving a murder. Pfft, implausible. Minus 10 points. And then, of course, there's the rampant cannibalism, and like, the year's not quite over, but I'm gonna call it 2022 was not the year we all turned to cannibalism. If that happens in November and all of a sudden everybody's eating people, fine. There will be egg on my face, because you're making me into a carbonara. But I am not expecting that, so I want to give him a negative 45 points here. Then, of course, there's the scoops. We gotta talk about the scoops. The way they do crowd controls by putting these giant metal shovels on the front of garbage trucks and just scooping people up, and although I have not seen it, that feels entirely plausible for 2022. This is absolutely something the cops would do if they were allowed to. Plus 6 points. Overall, for futurism, it's actually not that bad, and this was 50 years ago. This is a pretty solid prediction. Grading on that curve, I'm going to give you a B+. Good work, Soylent Green. As far as recommending the movie goes, I actually kind of do. I mean, there are some cheesy parts, but pizza's cheesy, and that's my favorite. This has got really good acting, some really interesting futurism stuff, some decent character work, and like, the twist is really good.
Soylent Green is made out of people.
I can't imagine what it was like to watch this movie in theaters and not know what Soylent Green was. Which brings me to a weird side note about this whole thing. There is a food product right now called Soylent. You've probably seen it. It's basically just Ensure shakes, but for tech bros. They named it after a dystopian cannibal snack. Like, what was possibly going on that they thought they could just reclaim Soylent as a word for food where you don't know what it's made of? I mean, it's so bizarre. So I guess maybe not everybody had the ending spoiled for it. Maybe some people just saw the posters and were like, oh, Soylent is food. Neat, let's try that. But I know the end of the movie now, so you could not in a million years convince me to spend my hard-earned D's on a bottle of Soylent. This is about Geostorm, that weird little car from the early 90s that GM tried to sell you with commercials like this one.
No!
Geostorms. Okay.
$10?
No! How much? Give me numbers. What's the catch?
There is no catch.
And this one.
Guys like a girl that knows how to drive a stick.
There's 140 horses in here. Can you... Hello? Horses?
No, actually, this is about the 2017 film Geostorm, which had a pretty similar level of writing.
Sure, kidnap the president. That sounds like the reasonable move.
Well, it's the only move we've got.
So, climate change, right? Why beat it when you can join it? We decided to make a series of satellites that control the weather using a bunch of lasers, and this was all put together by one super genius, played by walking Arby's sandwich, Gerard Butler. And it worked. He did it. He beat it. Easy peasy. But then, somebody decides to take over the satellites and use them to make bad weather instead of good weather because something power. Look, the promise of this movie is that you get to watch cities be destroyed by CG weather, and they do that. My personal favorite is where the people on the beach got really cold all of a sudden. So then Gerard Butler takes the weather satellite system, unplugs it, and plugs it back in. That is what he does. That's really what happens.
What's the catch?
There is no catch.
Well, actually there is the one catch. All those explosions made so much space debris we could never launch anything safely ever again. But they don't explore it, so why would I? Look, it's hard to predict the future, but when it's only a couple of years, it's much easier. And this movie came out in 2017. This is 5 years ago. And they think this much is going to change in that period of time. It's so ridiculous. I'm just going to whip through these like a super tornado. No. No. Definitely not. No. Not even close. Nope. For sure not. No. Not that. No. But at one point, a self-driving car crashes. Pretty good. 1,000 points.
How much? Give me numbers.
Overall score, 2 thumbs. Gouging out my own eyes. Just set this in 2030. It would have been so easy and way more plausible. So that's the last one of 2022. I'm looking ahead. There are not a lot of movies set in 2023. As far as I can tell, it's just X-Men Days of Future Past and an anime called Gunbuster, which I assume is about the Ghostbusters, but they decide to actually do something useful for once. That's it. So if I want to keep the series going, I think I have to go backwards. So why don't you tell me your favorite movie that was set in like 2020, 2021 that got the future completely wrong? I'd love to talk about it. Let me know in the comments. Happy New Year, and remember, no matter how bad you think you are at your job, somebody got paid to write this.
Can you... Hello? Horses?